Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar about how to explore Kentucky's high-demand career sectors with Futuriti.org. My name is Robin Abear, and I work here at the Council on Post-Secondary Education, and I'm joined today by my friends Jessica Fletcher, Mitzi Holland, and Susie Burkhart. And we're going to tag team our webinar today to provide some resources and some ideas for how you can use Futuriti.org to help your students, whether they're in high school or early in their post-secondary journey, how you can help them explore and discover high-demand careers in Kentucky. So I want to give you a quick look at the outcomes for today's session. Will increase awareness of Futuriti.org as a Kentucky-specific career exploration tool, and that's one of the things that makes Futuriti so wonderful. We'll look at how students can explore high-demand career sectors through engaging in interactive activities. Susie's going to walk us through some of the things that you might do with students to help them explore these high-demand careers. And then we're also going to share some strategies where you can integrate Futuriti into your advising and your instruction. All right. So we wanted to set a little context this morning, and so I'm going to ask all of Jessica and Susie and Mitzi to come on into the webinar space with me to give a little bit of context about why this is such an important topic and how it connects to the work that you're already doing. So Mitzi, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about the career standards and the advising framework.
Thank you, Robin. And I think you've got a slide that you're going to share for me there. Perfect. So, if you've joined us at all in any of our past webinars, everything that we do is working to support students as they transition from high school to post-secondary, and in the hopes that they will have a seamless transition. We want them to have the support that they need. So we want you all as advisors and counselors to have the resources you need to support those students in learning about career pathways, career clusters, so that they can have access to post-secondary opportunities and earn those post-secondary credentials. And as you work to inform and support your students regarding high-demand career sectors, we want to point out that there are connections to the post-secondary advising framework. And while there are milestones and activities in grades 6 through 12 that support students in learning about career clusters, career pathways, industry certs, those credentials that I mentioned, there is one milestone in particular. It falls in the career exploration category, and it specifically targets grade 11 students or learners. And this milestone particularly points to high demand career sectors. And in that milestone, students begin to explore their industry of interest and research information on in-demand sectors or high-demand sectors in their community. That's not to say that that's the first time that becomes an opportunity for students, but that is where it becomes more of a focused opportunity, I should say. So all of the things that lead up to that give them the opportunity to be ready for that when they get to grade 11. We also want to point out that throughout this work, we've been very intentional to connect the work to the career study standards as well as financial literacy standards. So if you look at the framework and if you look at the lesson plans that we're going to be sharing with you later on, you'll see that those standards are embedded throughout the framework, throughout lesson plans. So we've been very intentional to make sure that we've made those connections, because we know that it's very important to connect all the work being done together so that we can have seamless supports and resources for our students.
Okay, thanks, Mitzi. Mitzi kind of gave a little bit of background about why this is important to K-12 educators, but I also wanted to talk about the connection to the Kentucky Graduate Profile, which is the state's post-secondary learning framework. What we're going to be talking about today is very much related to these 10 essential skills that are embedded in post-secondary coursework. So the graduate profile is an effort to align the knowledge, the skills, and the abilities that students gain while they're in college with the skills that they will need for success in the workforce and in life. So as they explore these high-demand careers as high school or post-secondary students, they will have the opportunity to practice and hone many of these critical workforce skills that they'll need to land competitive jobs and that they'll also need to apply every day as employees in these high-demand sectors. So I want to give you just a couple of examples of the types of skills that students would have the opportunity to practice as they're exploring these high-demand career sectors and engaging in some of the lesson plans that Susie's going to share with you a little bit later on. For one thing, they'll be communicating effectively. They'll be practicing these communication skills as they listen and weigh the influence of others and learn to respond accurately and professionally and coherently, both in writing and orally, and also in their formal presentations. They'll learn to think critically, to solve problems and create new ideas and solutions. They'll evaluate assumptions and assess information to make informed conclusions. Sometimes these are sort of hard skills to get to, and we really believe that exploring these high-demand career sectors will give students the opportunity to practice these skills. They'll also have the chance to apply some quantitative reasoning skills as they analyze and solve some numerical challenges like, well, how much money will it take to get me to this career that I want? How much money will I make in my early career, mid-career, and late career? So thinking about the financial aspects of the career that they're interested in. And finally, they'll learn to practice interacting effectively with other people. They'll be developing self-awareness and appreciation of different perspectives. They'll be collaborating with other students, becoming effective team members, and managing conflict as team members. So all of these things are embedded in the exploration of the high-demand sectors and the lesson plans that we're going to share with you today. And so we're really helping these students to not only prepare for what comes in college, but also for the kinds of job skills that they'll be needing in the future. So as you can see, the graduate profile is really aligned with the students' exploration of Kentucky's high-demand career sectors, as well as national post-secondary frameworks like the American Association of Colleges and Universities Essential Learning Outcomes, the Quality Assurance Commons 8 Essential Employability Qualities, and the National Association of Colleges and Employers Competencies for a Career-Ready Workforce. So lots of connections to their preparation to become skilled workers and then making that transition into the workforce. All right, at this time, I'd like to turn things over to Jessica Fletcher, who's going to provide a brief overview of the high-demand sectors and just a quick introduction to Futuriti.org.
Good morning, everyone. Super excited to continue the conversation on Futuriti. If you have joined any of the KAA webinars in the past, you have probably heard us talk about this platform that we launched back in February of this year. But it is really created to be a one-stop shop for all things career and education exploration in Kentucky. But today we're here to talk about how you can use Futuriti to help students better understand the high demand career sectors. And to provide a little context on what we mean when we say high demand career sectors, I wanted to give a little overview of how those high demand sectors were actually selected in Kentucky. So if you are familiar with the Kentucky Center for Statistics, they are the aggregators of all of the labor, education, and longitudinal data in the state of Kentucky. And one of the ways they do that is they work with employers from across the state to calculate the state's unemployment rate, to calculate the state's average wages by occupation, and when they're doing that, they're also able to calculate open job projections, comings and goings of people retiring, entering, exiting the workforce, so that they can then calculate those projections for various occupations. They then take those numbers and they see where the shortfalls are going to be. And then they work with the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board, which is a group of business leaders throughout the state who tend to identify the needs of what the business community and workforce needs, similar to what you see happen in your local communities with local chambers of commerce, area development districts, and groups like that. So they then identify the most needs. So what they have identified in the past couple of few years has been that Kentucky is lacking healthcare workers. They are lacking workers in the education sector. They also need plenty of construction and technical trade individuals for those jobs. And all of that is for lots of reasons. So, either super high need growth in a sector. So that could mean, 2 new hospitals were built in the state of Kentucky, and we still need to staff those hospitals. So there's lots of reasons for why demand grows for different occupations. But the state of Kentucky has identified those 5 sectors. So if we can look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that those are healthcare, construction, professional, scientific, and technical services, manufacturing, logistics, and education. There are also a few emerging career sectors that they're not really included in those 5 high demand sectors, but they are sort of sectors where we're seeing lots of growth. We're seeing industries coming to Kentucky, like in the field of aviation and aerospace, but we're also seeing an increased need for mental health professionals. So that's why we like to include those 2 high demand emerging sectors. And so what Futurity does is take those sectors and allow students to better understand the occupations within those sectors. So I have a short video here. I'm going to try to share my screen with audio and share this video that gives you a little more context about how you can navigate Futurity to understand those sectors a little bit better. So here goes.
Connect their interests and strengths to real opportunities in the workforce. These careers, found in fields like healthcare, manufacturing, construction, education, and technical services, offer strong job growth, competitive wages, and long-term stability. By researching which occupations are most needed in their region, individuals can make informed choices about education, training, and credentials that lead directly to rewarding employment. Futurity allows you to do all these things using Kentucky-specific data to help you make informed decisions to find your future. To get started seeing what's in demand in Kentucky, click the Choose Your Path from the main menu and click on Selecting High Demand Careers. From there, you can click into each of Kentucky's 5 high demand sectors and 2 emerging high demand sectors. Each page shows you in-demand occupations, the median wages those occupations earn in Kentucky, and the projected employment for that job. If you click Learn More, you will see the full Future Finder listing, including the schools in Kentucky you can enroll in to earn a credential in that field. If you navigate back to the Selecting High Demand Careers page, you see that you can also explore Kentucky's high demand careers by education level and by region. If you click on Explore Careers, you'll be able to see which jobs are in the most demand, sorted by the level of education required for those jobs. If you scroll through these occupations, you'll see how the wages can vary based on education level. For example, a job like fast food cook that requires no high school diploma earns a median wage of $23,000, while a job like tractor-trailer truck drivers that requires a post-secondary non-degree award earns a wage of more than $50,000. You can also see what jobs are in demand in the Kentucky region where you live by clicking on Explore Kentucky Regions on the Selecting High Demand Careers page. Local conditions in your region can cause high demand occupations to differ. Kentucky has 10 local workforce areas, which include 7 or more counties. Click on the region where your county is located, and you'll see a listing of those regionally in-demand jobs. Finally, you can also sort careers by their demand in Future Finder. If you click any on career, and then set the level of education you're pursuing, then sort by demand, you'll see all of the high demand occupations listed first. We hope this video put you on the path to finding your future. Exploring high demand careers.
So that is our high demand video, and I guess I will turn it back over to Robin to keep us moving on the webinar.
Thanks so much, Jessica. And we'll be sharing a link to that video a little bit later on if you all would like to use that with your students. It's kind of an introduction to the high demand sectors and a little bit of instruction about how to find that in Futuriti. I'm really excited now to introduce Susie Burkhart. She is a recent retiree from Shelby County Public Schools, and we're really thankful about that because we were able to take advantage of her availability today. And she's going to share a little bit about how you can actually lead students through an exploration of some of these high demand career sectors. She'll talk a little bit about some student activities that you can engage in, and then also kind of step back and say, well, from a school or district perspective, how can you think about how to implement some of these ideas and strategies? How do you find time, which is that most valuable asset to do these kinds of things? So Susie, I'm going to turn things over to you now.
Thanks, Robin. Again, I am excited to be here and share some lesson plans that were designed specifically for high demand career exploration with students. So I've put those up on the screen. And just looking at kind of in general, participants will have access to these lesson plans following the webinar. And we'll talk a little bit about kind of guiding you through a few ideas from these lesson plans that you can work with your students. So one of the lessons is just career exploration by sector. And there's a lesson also about exploring high demand careers by region, because many of our high school students just think really about the region they're living in, but they can really be anywhere in Kentucky, and those high demand careers are different depending on location and what's drawn there to that area. There's also a lesson on financial literacy and FAFSA related to post-secondary planning and career planning and lifestyle planning. And then there's some essential skills and employability lesson that we'll talk a little bit about, as well as interviewing professional investigating options in terms of circling back to high demand careers. So I'm going to go scooch back up. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy with all this scrolling, but I'll scooch back up to that first lesson. And I think it is an 11th, it shows 11 through 14, but as we all know, as educators, it's never too early to start with students just talking about some of the options, because students are ready at different times to kind of grasp this. And some students are a little more forward thinking. And sometimes it gives kids time to change their minds if they think they want to be, a pilot, and all of a sudden they realize, gosh, I might like to be a statistician. I didn't even know about that job. So I want to take you to this first lesson is really on career exploration. And Jessica did a great job of showing some of the functionality in Futuriti, but as a user myself, it has taken me some time to get into Futuriti and really see it's a very deep platform, and it's very Kentucky specific. So like any great platform, it's easy to get in there and start getting distracted or lost in what you want to do. So today's focus is high demand careers. So I'm going to show the Futuriti website when you're at the very start of it. If you go to choose your career path, so let me show you it. If you go to choose your career path, you'll see, you'll see at the top. So again, let me go back to the start. So when you log into Futuriti, it looks like this. You can either go to choose your career path here, or I like to use these tabs up top just because they're very specific about what they're showing students. So choosing your career path If you go to, again, the focus today is high demand careers. So if you go to selecting high demand careers, you're really going to get a focus there. So this first lesson really focuses on the sectors. So the high demand sectors are here, and you'll recognize this page from the video that Jessica showed. So this outlines the 5 high demand career sectors: healthcare, construction, professional, scientific, and technical services, manufacturing and logistics, and education, as well as the emerging trends. So students can go here. We'll have a sort link that students can sort jobs before they start their learning to just kind of look at some of their presuppositions on different jobs and whether they are high demand, because many students think some jobs are high demand simply because maybe they go get their hair cut a lot. So they think, oh, we need a lot of cosmetologists. Well, actually, that's not a high demand career in Kentucky. Nothing wrong with being a cosmetologist, and we do need them, but they're not in high demand. So when students go here, let's say you open up healthcare, it gives a little overview, but in the lesson plan, they'll be looking through some of these careers and making some decisions on which ones interest them. The lesson plans are really designed to be student centric and what I call student in. So it's always asking the student which job interests you, why, and then asking them to delve a little bit further in. So one thing to notice when you get into the high demand careers, so this is again the healthcare sector under high demand careers. It took me a minute to figure this out when I was using Futuriti the first time. So the high demand practitioner careers, it says learn more here. This really isn't learn more about registered nurses. It's learn more about other careers. So if you click this button, it brings you to other jobs that students could potentially have that are more of a practitioner career. In addition, you've got your high demand healthcare support careers. Again, over here, you've got your learn more. And it tells them their education required for that, the median wage, and then projected employment for 2032. So that first lesson plan really asks students, what interests you that's high demand? Now, some students might, I think one of the challenges is some students, they're like, I'm not interested in any of those. So one of our jobs, I think, is to help students, if you're talking about high demand careers so that they don't check out, is to make sure they see some connections with what they are interested in. So many of those career fields are really open. And so this lesson plan guides kids through just thinking about a high demand career, and then allows them to come back and share a sector that's interesting to them, and listening to a partner, jotting down some notes that a partner said, again, working on those listening skills, and then sharing those out as a class. There's another option as well in this investigation, is just making a gallery walk where students have a group representative. So they go to the sector they're interested in, and they prepare a poster of that sector and what interested them. And then the group walks around. Most educators know how to do a gallery walk, but a way to get kids engaged in that gallery walk is maybe give them some sticky dots so that they can put their name on something they agree with or disagree with on the gallery walk as they're doing that. So again, to go back to Futuriti, the way that you get to high demand careers is just choose your career path and then just go to high demand, and all of that information is right there on that page. So the second lesson plan that you'll have access to is really looking at high demand by region. And so that's this, we just left this area here, high demand sectors. But if you go to high demand by region, it opens up a page that shows a map of Kentucky. And in this lesson, students are going to choose an area and then go into that area and do some investigating about wage earning and specific jobs. So if you open up Kentuckiana Works from that, every page looks a little different. So it gives you some information about what's going on in that area. So it does give some career pathways, workforce alignment. Students can investigate there. In addition, if you choose a different region, they all look a little bit different. So let's see. Let's say you choose Green River. They can go in here and say what's going on in that region. And again, they look a little bit different. So it takes you to the Kentucky Career Center, and students can investigate there. And in the lesson plan, it's asking students to take a look at high demand careers by region. And that really allows them to open up, to see if I'm not living in the area where I'm currently living, but I'm staying in the state, what might I want to focus on? Or if I'm very interested in construction, where is that really booming? And might I want to move to an area to pursue something like that? It really, this lesson plan allows you to investigate with students like career options, salary, credentials, and growth trends. So students are really getting into the tool and looking at some of the very specific things that Futuriti can link them to, especially as they reach 11th and 12th grade. There's certainly, an understanding there of lifestyle, the lifestyle they desire when they graduate and what that's going to take. This section on FAFSA, the lesson plan, is really less based in Futuriti, but it does ask students to investigate a post-secondary scenario and then how to pay for that. So on Futuriti, where you would find information for that, let me get back to the homepage, is, again, we just left this choose your career path for the high demand. Again, we went to the high demand careers and we sought that out by career sector and then by region. But if you go to continue your education, this tab, and you go down to, let me make sure I'm leading us the right way, paying for your education here, you'll see some options here that show students like ways to pay for their education, financial aid, and then understanding the FAFSA, which is always something that's really important to help kids understand. But also in here, I'm trying to find the, wanted to show the, this is very college centric, but if you also go to Kentucky apprenticeships, you'll see some information about that for students and how to access apprenticeships. And then if you select continue your education, the very first tab under continue your education, I just want to say, just having spent some time in Futuriti recently, if students click on I'm a high school student right away, it takes them to a specific page. I would recommend if students are looking at financial aid and what are the options for after high school, a lot of students don't understand that all of these things are options. So I would say with this lesson on financial aid, first, before you say I'm a high school student, look down here and have kids investigate. What is an apprenticeship? What is a skilled trades program? What is an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, an advanced degree? And how does the military plan into my future planning? And then when you choose high school student, it will take you into exploring, getting prepared, paying, attending, but more college centric on this page. So I just didn't want you to miss this part underneath, which I think is a gap for a lot of our high school students. The employability skills circles back to the profile of a graduate that Robin shared about if we're looking at the lesson plans that you guys will have. But lesson 5, I wanted to touch on that because it really circles back to those high demand careers where students are, once they've investigated the careers in lesson 1, they can come back and develop some, a way to cycle into those is developing some interview questions. If they were going to interview for a high demand career, what are some things that would be asked of them? And so it asks them to really dig deep into the skill sets that are involved in terms of readying themselves through the lens of interviewing. And so again, you guys will have, access to these. I wanted to touch a little bit on the career panel idea with even some other work that I'm doing outside of Futuriti. A lot of times we think about career panel and it's sort of stressful, I think, for educators to think about pulling that together. It's a lot. But I think too, we can also use our chambers. We can use even students and our CTE teachers. So don't forget that your CTE teachers are experts in their field, so they can serve as career panelists. And then maybe you have a senior who's in an internship or doing work-based learning, and they can share from their viewpoint or their level of understanding. So, sometimes it's overwhelming to think about doing a career panel. So that might be a way to think about that. I wanted to talk a little bit about, let me see if I can stop sharing here, a little bit about, let's see. No. Robin, did you stop sharing for me? I'm not sure I can get it to.
I did not, but maybe Heather took care of you. I'm not sure.
Okay, someone did. So really, again, you'll have access to those lesson plans, and I think they do a nice job of starting very general and getting more specific as they go. And I think, you know, with students, just giving them time to explore, because it's really something, you know, 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have the data pulled together like we do in Futuriti, where kids can go in and say, not only do I want to go to work, but I call it a straight line versus a dotted line. A lot of times people are nervous about paying for college tuition, investing in training, if it's just what I call a dotted line to a job or a career. And a lot of parents, when I was a college and career coordinator, would express that, like, no, we want it to go directly to a job. So Futuriti really allows kids to map their planning and their financing and their expenditure of funds toward a specific job that we know will be available in this region, in the regions of Kentucky. So I think in that way, it's very applicable. And one way I think too, to share, you know, parents are sometimes our best mentors with students. Sometimes they're not, but giving the link to Futuriti and maybe some breadcrumbs to your youth service center coordinator, if they put out a monthly newsletter, you know, just allowing parents to get involved and allowing parents to help guide their students, or a mentor or someone like that. But some of the implementation, I know having worked in several high schools, that it's difficult sometimes to think about, well, this is great, but when does this happen during the school day with so much going on? You know, there's always an opportunity cost. You know, if you're teaching high demand careers, you're not teaching something else. So that's, first of all, you got to get over that. And that's sometimes most difficult for our teachers, I think. But we know that all of our juniors are in English class, obviously math class. So you can ask, you know, those teachers to kind of cycle around to have a focus on careers during those courses at certain times of the year. Maybe it's times like before Thanksgiving, when we know like things are kind of getting to a little bit of a slower pace toward the closure or toward a holiday. Those are good times to ask our content specialists, hey, what do you all think about this? If you have an advisory session at your school, or old-fashioned like homeroom, or some kind of way that where kids are getting together in a group daily, weekly, that's obviously a really great time to do this, because in those situations, we assume an advisor or a homeroom teacher would really know those students pretty well, because they've had them every day for a given amount of time where there's not a heavy amount of content and maybe more social learnings happening. So that might be a good time to delve in with kids about their interests. Obviously our CTE classrooms. So, you know, as kids are exploring their CTE pathway, whether they're invested in that CTE pathway for after high school or not, that's a great time to review high demand careers, not just in their pathway, but I think our CTE teachers can help kids connect. Oh, so you're interested in construction, but maybe you're in healthcare pathway. Can you help them connect that to healthcare so that it's meaningful to them? And then obviously, you know, in a high school, you can create a rotation schedule, like a half day post-secondary focus day, where maybe you're doing FAFSA applications. One session is high demand careers and options for after high school, where kids are rotating and you're using staff in a different way. We found that to be really helpful when I worked at Shelby County, just to have a day or a morning that was just kind of focused on that for juniors or sophomores, where we knew everyone was getting it. And then we could follow up with some things after that. And definitely, like our guidance counselors, our college and career coaches, our Everybody Counts coaches, our Gear Up coaches, they're also folks that can push in to classrooms and provide, you know, sessions with grade levels or classrooms that are specific to high demand careers. Because I do think that this is information that students aren't always aware of. And I do think that our students, as they enter the last part of high school, are very interested in the vision of what does that look like for me? So if I'm going to invest 4 years, or if I'm going to invest in an apprenticeship, what does that look like? And many of them don't really have any idea what that looks like. And so I think this exploration tool on Futuriti with high demand careers really allows them to see there is a job linked to this work that I'm signing up for, and it really creates a clearer path for them. And they won't all go into those type of careers, but I like the way that they're able to look at it from lots of ways. So they can look at it longitudinally about like, okay, if I don't want to go to college, what are some options in healthcare? And it's very clear in Futuriti what those would be in a high demand area. So I think, this is needed information for our students and for our families. So again, like involving your youth service center coordinator in getting out Futuriti to parents, but with breadcrumbs, like how do you navigate it? Because it is very big and it can be overwhelming, and you can really get down a rabbit hole in Futuriti in a good way because there's so much there. But giving them, breadcrumbs to go to choose your career path, go to high demand, and then they can see it there, or continue your education, and then paying for your education. So really giving them steps to be successful when they go in there to answer their questions.
All right, Susie, thank you so much for giving us an overview of the types of lessons that you might use to help students explore these careers, and also just how folks might think about the timing of all of this work that is so important for students in their futures. As Heather put in the chat box, but I just wanted to say it out loud, if you have questions for Susie or for anybody else who's on the webinar today, please feel free to drop those into the Q&A box. We have just a few more things we want to talk about before we close today. I'm going to turn things back over now to Jessica Fletcher. She's going to talk a little bit about, okay, so we built Futuriti and it's operational, and it has a lot for students. It offers a lot for students, but we're not done. And so she's going to talk a little bit about future plans and what's next for Futuriti.
Thanks. So Susie did a great job of walking us through the different options that students have after they finish high school. And so what do Kentuckians mean when they say, quote, post-secondary education? And that's something that as we were building Futuriti, we really wanted people not just to think that we're talking about your traditional four-year college pathway, but we're talking about things like apprenticeships. We're talking about short-term credentials, associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, higher ed, past bachelor's degrees, masters and doctorates. It really means everything education related that you can do to high school, after high school, that leads you into a successful and sustainable career. So as Robin said, we are really trying to not just, have this all-inclusive place for Kentuckians to go to find their futures. We're consistently trying to figure out what's missing from the site. So over the next several years, we will be adding on to the momentum that we have already created with Futuriti. So one of the things that you will see, hopefully within the next, I would say, 2 to 3 months, is we will be adding a apprenticeship search feature to Future Finder. So I just pulled up the About Kentucky Apprenticeship so you can see where students right now can just learn about what an apprenticeship is. But we're going to be adding a 5th tab to the Future Finder, where students will be able to navigate through all of the open apprenticeships in Kentucky. So that will include like different companies that are offering apprenticeships programs, and how long those apprenticeships last until students have those credentials. So that's a very exciting development. We are also, over the next year, working to create right now you'll see linked living wage calculators and family budget calculators. All of these take you outside of Futuriti and use different metrics, different ways to kind of calculate what the living wage is for families of different sizes. We're actually trying to build and integrate one of these using the data that you find in Future Finder. So a student can go in and say, I am going to be a registered nurse. I'm hopefully will be making the typical wage of $77,000. And then they can go into that calculator and find out, like, based on where they live in Kentucky, what their living expenses will be. So that's just another way for them to help plan and say, oh, you know, I'm going to have 3 kids. That might not be enough to help me put all of the kids in daycare at the same time, or, you know, we might have a shortfall for groceries. So it might help them kind of see the realities of those careers and what they might need, and different careers that they might need to choose in order to kind of live out what they're expecting, you know, as far as finances go. So those are 2 really exciting developments that are already in the pipeline. We are working on some ways to also help schools better utilize individual learning plans and kind of capture that data. So we're getting closer to that, but once again, we are seeking funding, grants, and state funding for various ways that we want to expand this website. And as always, you know, you all are out in the field, you're hearing what students say as they're using Futurity. So if you ever have any ideas, we would love to hear those. So please always kind of consider our team that you're seeing on the screen right here, sort of a continuous feedback loop of how we can make Futurity bigger and better.
I did want to add, Jessica, because you mentioned ILP, and I never said the word ILP when I was sharing the lesson plans, but these lesson plans obviously are going to produce products that can be stored in the ILP. Some of the links and worksheets will make it easy for educators just to either do it digitally and have kids upload it to their ILP, or print something and then scan it into their ILP. So hopefully the lesson plans will be helpful in kind of grabbing the ideas as they're there and helping kids store them.
Okay, thanks, Jessica and Susie. And Mitzi, I don't know, did you want to add anything else about the future of Futurity, especially in terms of lesson plans and direct supports for educators that are there?
Sure, Robin. We are, through the Kentucky Advising Academy, working to create an advising scope and sequence that will utilize the milestones and activities from the advising framework, but it will pare it down and make it a lot more digestible. We will have a year at a glance, or an advising timeline for each grade level 6 through 12. And this will include, you know, the scope and sequence and lesson plans. And we are working to intentionally connect those lessons and those activities to Futurity when it's applicable. And, you know, like to Susie's point, we're being very mindful of ILP completion requirements and want this to be very meaningful work for students. We want it to really help support the students in finding their future and, you know, aligning those career pathways that they start in high school to post-secondary opportunities. So within, you know, our goal is within this next year, prior to the next school year, having some lesson plans and the scope and sequence ready to roll out, and you all would have an extra layer of resource support as you're working with your students. So
awesome. Thanks, Mitzi. So as a sort of a reward for being on the webinar today, you will be receiving a copy of the lesson plans that Susie previewed for you. We have a few final touches. We've got to polish them up just a little bit more before we send them to you. So that'll be sometime this week, the later today or tomorrow. So I don't see some clapping there. That's good that you all would like to have those. Just to wind things down today, I want to just let you all know that our next webinars will be in November, on November 6th and November 18th. And Mitzi will be hosting the one on November 6th. I'll be back to host on November 18th. And what we're looking at in November is kind of a continuation of today's conversation, but it's more about helping students explore career options, especially through different activities like interest inventories and just ways that you can work with them to explore what sort of careers are of interest to them that align to their personalities and their strengths. And so we'll be talking about how can you talk directly with students and coach and encourage and instruct them about how to select an appropriate career, one that has a future in Kentucky, one that could lead them toward a life-sustaining wage and also a fulfilling life. And so we'll be offering some suggestions about those career conversations that you can have with secondary and post-secondary students. We also wanted to let you know that there is ELA credit available for today, and I'll put a screen up now so that you can capture that QR code. If you would like to receive ELA credit, you definitely need to complete this evaluation because it will give you the option of saying, yes, I'd like to have ELA. But we would like to hear from all of you who are on the webinar today. We want to continuously improve these webinars and make them extremely helpful and useful to you. And so your feedback is really instructive for us in that way. So if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and capture the QR code. And does anybody have any final words? Susie, Jessica, Mitzi? Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I did not see any questions in the Q&A box, so I think that will conclude our webinar today. We look forward to your evaluation and we'll see you in November.